All right, now that we're all warmed up, we're ready to move. Going to explore some of the foundation poses and the foundations of what makes up a Vinyasa yoga class. A very important element of a Vinyasa class is the breath. And the breath is like a guide. It essentially will help guide us through the class and through the movements. And in today's day and age, a lot of society, we're kind of top heavy when we breathe, and we breathe into our chest. And so I'm going to show you an example. It's going to be better throughout showing you these poses for me to not have that on. And so a lot of society breathe into quite shallow, and it's into the chest like this. And you might see the subtle rise and fall of the chest here. And what we want to try and aim to do, and it's not only in yoga, throughout the whole entire day, it's healthier to breathe down into our belly. So like this. Breathing deep into our diaphragm helps relax our nervous system. When we're breathing into our chest, that actually activates our nervous system, and it's much more relaxing and healthy for us to be able to breathe deeply into our stomach and into our lower belly. So have a few goes at that. Just trying to take a deep breath into your belly. It can be in through the nose and out through the mouth, or in through the nose and out through the nose, whatever's comfortable for you. And the breath's crucial in Vinyasa because as you begin to develop the flow and move through the sequences, it will usually build up to be one breath, one movement. And so a Vinyasa yoga flow will start off usually with some warm-ups, and then it'll go through some sequences. And then once you get the sequence down pat, it'll move into a pattern of moving for one sequence to one breath. And so the breath is a guide for us to move. And it's important to take note of the breath throughout your practice. If you notice it starting to become a little bit rigid, or there's a bit of tension in the breath, it's potentially the fact that you've gone too deep into a pose. It shouldn't be like this. You should be able to breathe really smoothly throughout the whole practice. And so, as I said, the breath is like a guide for us, and we can tune into the breath. It helps us ground, it helps us be present, and it's a good meditative focal point for us throughout the practice. The breath is also our life force. It provides oxygen to all of the cells in our body, and when we provide the trees and nature around us with food, the oxygen that it takes in, and then it returns fresh oxygen and carbon dioxide for us to breathe in. And so it's a very wonderful thing that happens autonomously for us, and something that we can quite often overlook, and it's a really powerful thing. So it's good to spend a moment and show a gratitude and thankfulness for that. So use the breath as a guide for you. Now, I want you to bear with me as I move the mic around. I'll try and keep it as smooth as possible. However, to demonstrate, I might have to shift it around, and the audio might not be as awesome as I had hoped, but got to make do. So we're going to begin with our first pose, and this is our most basic pose of the practice, or it would be on par with one other pose, but this is called child's pose, and it's available to you at any time of the practice. And know that if the flow is getting too difficult or you just need a rest, you can take time out and come back to child's pose. It's a restorative pose, and it's just for that, for resting. And as I said, it's available to you anytime. So bringing your knees as wide as the mat, sitting on your heels And you want to bring your arms out in front of you and sinking the chest down to the ground, and the forehead can land on the ground as well. Now again, you don't want to have any pinching in the knees, so you might need to move them wider or bring them in. Just see what feels right for you and go slowly for your first child's pose. The ground provides a nice massage to the forehead, and you can gently rock side to side. You might feel a gentle stretch in the hamstrings and a release in the lower back as your torso lengthens. You don't want to have your arms stretched really far out, and that makes it quite active, an active child's pose. You just want to have them comfortable. And you can also, another option is the knees together and your arms can be down by your side. These are your two options for child's pose. And if you were to come to a class and you were totally wrecked and didn't have any energy, if you wanted to do child's pose the entire class, the teacher would understand and respect that. And I've spent some classes in child's pose myself, just resting. So it's certainly something to not be ashamed of. And coming up onto your knees, we'll move on to our next pose now. I will show you both poses, one on the side and then one facing the camera, so you can see. My knees come out to the side, hands down in front, and the head just on the ground. And just remembering to breathe throughout these poses. Deep into the belly and out through the mouth or out through the nose, letting it go. Our second foundational pose is called tabletop, and it has your shoulders stacked over your wrists, having your fingertips engaged, cupping the ground like a basketball, like you're palming a basketball, as I mentioned in the previous video. Your hips stacked up above your knees, and you can add a little bit of length through the crown. So you have some engagement through the core, so you can feel some engagement through here. It's a strong pose it's not very physical, but you can still be very strong in your body. So pushing down into your feet, activating your core. You want to kind of wrap your elbows in, and that should give you a really strong foundation. As I'm sure you can see, it resembles a tabletop. So the tabletop pose is more of a transition pose, and it might be from tabletop that you go to a downward facing dog, or you would go to a chaturanga, or to move into cat-cow, which is our next pose. I won't spend too much time on tabletop because it's quite simple, but here's the front version as well. So a flat back, a bit of length through the crown, so you don't have your shoulders bunched in, a good amount of distance, and it's just a really strong pose that you've got from the tips of your toes. Your whole body can be engaged. So a cat-cow, and this takes the same foundation as tabletop, and we would begin to rotate our pelvis clockwise and lifting the chest up and through for the cow pose. And then the cat is rounding the spine and pushing up through the palms into the back, and the head can dip down. And we just move through cat-cow in our own flow, and this is usually at the beginning of a class. It's great to mobilize the spine. I love this one. I'll always include it in my warm-up as well, and I invite you to get fluid and create your own version of the cat-cow. So maybe you might be rocking the hips from side to side, doing some waves, and remembering to breathe. And you can even begin to sync your breath up with the movement here. Exhaling on the cat and inhaling on the cow. And this is a great way to warm the spine up, as I said. I'll swap around to the front. So a strong foundation through the hands and the wrists, and then dipping down. Exhale, rounding the spine. Taking it nice and slow. So I'm going to run through all the poses. There's about 10 here of the foundation poses, and then I'll also sync them together in a bit of a sequence for you in the next video. So don't be afraid if it's going too fast. We'll have plenty of time to get it down pat. And there's some crossover between some of the videos of poses as well, as they are used in some of the different types of stretch in the body. So after we've done some cat and cows, we're going to move into our first downward facing dog. I want you to really palm the ground, palm your mat. Strong foundation through the hands. You can wrap your shoulders and elbows in and tuck your toes, lifting the knees off the ground. We're going to move into a downward facing dog and have a generous bend in the knees. And you can see mine right now, very bent. And it'll depend on your flexibility in your hamstrings, and this is the back body stretch. So this is used often throughout the flow, and it's a transition pose as well, one that we return to before moving into another sequence. And you don't want to have, I'm going to invite you to pedal your feet out a little bit. So dropping your heels down one side to the other. Don't worry, there's no need to have your heels flat on the ground. It doesn't matter where they sit. Everybody's flexibility is different. Just pedaling it out, taking some deep breaths into your belly. I'm going to swap to the front so you can see here. So you don't want to have your shoulders in. You don't want to have them out here. That's dangerous for them. You just want to have them nice and straight up from your wrists, and you should feel a little bit of tension across the back of your shoulders whilst you're pushing back. And it should be a nice, relatively flat back all the way down. And your head, it just runs back as well. So that's a downward facing dog. Come down on your knees. We'll take a little bit of a break just before moving on to the next one, as a downward facing dog is quite a physical pose. And often in the Vinyasa sequence, the teacher will say back to downward dog. And this is also a good time to go into child's pose if you need a rest. So know that you've got that up your sleeve if things are getting a bit too physical. So our next pose, I'm going to show you the demonstration and then I'm going to modify it. So choose what level you'd like to go at, and it's a plank pose. So from a downward facing dog, you would roll over the toes, head comes forward, chest comes level, shoulders are stacked above the wrists, and we've got a plank pose which is engaging our whole core. And it should be a relatively straight line from your heels up to the tip of your head. And if you want to modify, bring the knees down. So this is a modified plank. And this alleviates a little bit of the pressure that's going into the wrist. So when you're beginning to start yoga, it might be great to start just with the modified version. And a plank is usually a bit of a transition pose. However, it can be used to intensify the practice as well, which I'll explain in another video later on. So I'm going to do a modified version of the following pose, which is Chaturanga. And a Chaturanga is half a push-up. So it's coming down to here, and that's a Chaturanga. Coming back up, we're at a modified plank, Chaturanga. modified plank. If I was to do the Chaturanga from a full plank, it would look something like this. The whole body off the ground, half a push-up, and it's back up to the plank. The Chaturanga pose is usually in a sequence that's moving from a plank pose down to a Chaturanga and into the following pose, which is either a cobra or upward facing dog. Or the Chaturanga can also be used to just lower us down to our belly and to move into the next pose. So I'll show you from front on angle, the plank pose. Again, just a strong foundation through the hands, a strong foundation through the hands and shoulders, and it's straight. This is the plank, and then a Chaturanga halfway down. You want to wrap the elbows in, which gives us a bit more stability in the body. So like a hugging in of the torso and the rib cage as you come down. And it'll just give you a bit more stability in the wrist, elbows and shoulders as you come down. So hug it in, and then it's easy to move around when you've got that stability in the arms. So if we're going to move from Chaturanga down to our belly, and the next pose is going to be Cobra. And Cobra takes engagement throughout the whole body as well. If you push your toes into the ground, hands come by your chest, next to your rib cage, and it lifts up through the chest and the tip of the head. You don't want to go so far that you're cranking into the lower back. There should never be any pinching or intense sensations in the lower back. This is more about stretching the front of the body, so from your pelvis through your lower abdomen, upper abdomen, and into your chest as well. This is a Cobra, and I'm going to show you from the front version. So hands in tight by the chest, lifting up, toes on the ground. So your legs are activated through this one, which provides a bit of stability through the back. And now there's also, whilst I'm here, a wide-armed Cobra as well. So your hands would come off the mat. It's a 90 degrees from your elbows to your shoulders to your wrist, and you lift up. And this is a wide-armed Cobra as well. This is a great one for not only stretching the front of the body, but beginning to mobilize the spine, mobilize the lower back, which opens us up to our next pose, which is an upward facing dog. And this is usually found in a Vinyasa sequence. When you're doing a flush out, you have gone through a sequence and then you'll do your own Vinyasa. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in another video. But essentially from a Cobra, it has a very similar setup, except instead of just the chest coming off the ground, the whole body lifts from the tip of the toes all the way to the head. So I'm going to exaggerate this one, but it doesn't have to be this exaggerated. So that, as you can see, I would usually go to about this level here myself. And it's important to have the hands tucked in to the side of the rib cage, giving us a nice strong base to push up from. Toes down to the ground and the arms can straighten. I'm really lengthening through the chest and the tip of the head. So I'm not cranking back and putting compression into the lower spine. That's not ideal. This is a front body stretch again. So we want to feel the stretch throughout the front of our body, and we shouldn't feel anything. We will feel movement in the back, but there shouldn't be any crunching, no compression or sharp pains. So I'm going to move into the next pose, and that is mountain pose. So coming to standing, and mountain pose is as simple as 2 feet on the ground, all your toes engaged into the ground, a straight body, and arms by your side. And this is a great grounding pose. It's nice to check in with yourself where you're at. And the last pose, so mountain pose on the side. The second last pose that I'm going to be sharing with you is chair. And so you'll often come across this throughout a flow, and it can be quite an intense pose. So I invite you to take it easy, but you would bring your arms up above your head, parallel with your ears, and as if you're sitting on a chair, like the name, it's a chair pose. You might start up here, and then eventually over time you might get lower and lower as you begin to strengthen the muscles in your legs. Notice a flat back. I'm not arching, I'm not rounded, just nice and straight. And this is a good core one as well. It activates everything throughout your entire midline of your body. And so, chair pose from the front, feet quite close together, arms go up, and you lower down. So for the final pose, this is Savasana. You can make your way back down to the mat and laying on your back. And Savasana, I've heard some people say, is the most difficult pose of yoga, and I can understand why. And I'll share some more on it. We've got a whole video dedicated to Savasana coming up, so I'm just going to briefly touch on it. And finding your way down onto your back, hands by your side. And take a deep breath in through your nose, deep into your belly. And exhale it through the mouth. So this is Savasana, and it's also known as corpse pose. That's the English translation. And you'll experience this at the end of every yoga flow, Vinyasa yoga flow that you do. And it's the most important pose of the whole sequence and series that you do. And it's a time for your body to integrate and to allow the magic and the medicine of what you've just gone through with your flow to weave its magic in your body and allow your body to ground and to settle after sometimes some intense and vigorous movements. And a Savasana will go from anywhere from 3 minutes to 10 minutes depending on the class time and length. And sometimes there'll be silence. The teacher will guide you through it. And other times there'll be some music as well. And it's about feeling, allowing yourself to just be and just allowing things to be as they are. And I love Savasana myself, so I'm super excited to share a bit of an extended version with you. But in the essence of keeping on time, I'm going to invite you back up to a seat. And yes, it'll take just a tiny second to feel where you're at now after moving your body just a little bit. Take a deep breath into the belly again. And exhale, let something go. And you'll notice I was using the English terms for all of these poses. And that's because you don't need to know the Sanskrit names for the poses to go into a studio and to do a flow. All teachers will share with a mix of English and Sanskrit, and if they say the Sanskrit, they would usually say the English one before or after. So I'm going to share with you the English names for all of the poses, give you the confidence to go into the studio, and then I'll also share some reference photos that'll explain the Sanskrit names as well, if that's something you're interested in diving into. I had heaps of fun sharing that with you. Nice and slow, steady, although I'm working up a bit of a sweat being in the sun here, but nice and slow, cruising through this, like I said. I'm looking forward to sharing a mini sequence with you just with what we've done, and that'll be in the next video. Enjoy.